Ryan and I just played Aqua from Sidekick Games and the Op. This is a very light, straightforward, fast-playing tile placement game, all about underwater habitats, reefs, biodiversity.
Yeah, we just played it like David said, and today we're going to talk about who it's for, but also who we think it's not for. So take a look at this video, and if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. Don't miss any of these videos. We love to talk about games, but today we are talking about Aqua, which you're seeing a completed game right here in front of us right now.
Yeah, this is the game we just played, and just to give you a very brief, lightning-fast description of what you're doing, in this game, there are going to be some tiles laying out that look like this, 3 of them for a 2-player game, and you're just drafting these tiles and adding them to your area right here. When you add them, the goal is a few things. You're trying to make perfect hexes of the same color. When you do, you can take the corresponding small animal and add it to that. Then, if you happen to get 2 small animals next to each other or more, you might be able to put some large animals on top of them, but that requires biodiversity. They have to be different small animals to put one of the large animals. And you can see there's points all over the place. There's points on the small animals. There's points on the large animals. Then there's also these variable scoring that you're going to get at the end of the game related to each of those small animals.
Yeah, I know it's kind of hard to see our completed reef here because we're looking at it from above, but like David said, you're going to start with the base, which is just these coral tiles, and then you're going to place these habitats on top of them. There's 2 types of things you can make here. You can make these perfect hexes, which are going to allow you just to score some basic points, or you can make these reefs. And these reefs and these habitats kind of coexist. Reefs give you some extra scoring opportunities, where habitats will let you, like David said, put these large animals. So you can kind of see the 3 levels I have here. Once you're able to complete any one of these shapes with, of course, different types of animals, that's the key to the biodiversity. You have to have different types. You can layer these on. They're worth a lot of points. Some of these more complicated shapes are worth a ton of points. And then, of course, the value of these shapes is actually multiplied by specific types of animals you have living in your habitat. So you can already see that this is literally a multi-layered puzzle as you're stacking it up, but in a lot of different ways, you're trying to manage different ways of scoring points throughout the game as well.
Yeah, and it's also incredibly fast playing. When I read the rules, it said you're playing over 17 rounds, and I thought, well, 17 rounds sounds like a lot. Like, there's not a lot of games that say 17 rounds.
Sure.
But I was blown away. Literally, the first round, you're like, I'll take this tile, I'll take this tile. That's 1 round done. I mean, it just kept going like that.
When they say 17 rounds, effectively what it is you're drafting 17 tiles over the course of the game. And you're getting to kind of choose between drafting a tile. You can take one of the tiles available or the first player marker if you want to go first, but everybody's going to get a tile by the end of the round. And really the key is the positioning of those tiles around your board, because if you happen to make those shapes, either make the hexes or complete one of those biodiversity to get the large animals, you get to claim it immediately. It's not like you don't have to take an action or anything to do that. So the game does move along at a very, very quick pace. I think our game at 2 players was like 30 minutes max.
Oh, yeah.
So
if that. Yeah, so that kind of leads us into some of the things that we think who it's for, who it's not for. Speed of play. I know this might sound like a silly thing to say, but the fact that this game moves along so quickly, I think it's worth mentioning as if you like games that play very, very fast, this game plays lightning fast. Now, it must be said, if you like tile laying games, you're likely going to like this too. I think that goes without saying, even though I just said it.
It definitely goes without saying, but some people like their tile laying games to be a little simpler. Some of them like them to be a little more complicated. This one kind of falls into the middle, I think, because the actual action of taking the tile and placing it is pretty simple. But there are so many different things that you have to balance when placing a tile. You kind of have to plan ahead. So even though the game is lighter and even though the game is fast, there is a decent amount of puzzle solving, and it'll get your brain burning.
Oh, for sure.
Even within that 30-minute time frame, or probably 45 minutes if you're playing a 4-player game.
Sure, for sure. As Ryan was saying earlier, you're going after, first and foremost, the first goal I think that comes to any player's mind is to make a hex of 1 color. That's the first thing you have to do until you get to those other layers. But when you do that, sometimes you can get short-sighted and go, I'm going to make this yellow thing. And you're not really paying attention to the outskirts of the tiles that you're laying, but you want to, because you kind of want to place that so you're building hexes of certain colors, but also setting yourself up around the edges to build more hexes of hopefully different colors.
Yeah, if you want to get one of these guys, that requires 4 different hexes in a row, which as you can see on our board, actually, David, you might have been able to do it at one point, but
if I'd waited,
it's very difficult to actually make those work, and you really have to think hard about every edge of every piece you place.
Well, and the interesting thing, like you said, I could have had a bigger one here, but I'd gotten these two first, and I got to tell you, as soon as you get the opportunity to place a large animal, you kind of want to place a large animal. At least in my first game, I wanted to do that. So I placed that. The other reason I was wanting to place this is because there was only 2 of these type of tiles in this game at 2-player. So I took both of them knowing that at the end of the game, I was going to get a multiplier by these 2 tiles times these many blue tiles. And I was getting some blue tiles early on, so I thought, okay, well, that's going to be another layer of scoring for me.
Yeah, I think this is another aspect of the game that might appeal to a specific type of gamer is the variable setup. These tiles out here that we've set are going to be in a different order, and these scoring tiles beneath them are going to be in a different order as well. So in this particular game, when you're getting to in-game scoring, you're looking for this shape, and you're looking for seahorses. If you can get enough of these, you multiply them by how many seahorses you have on your board, that's a great strategy. But next game, these tiles are going to be different. And there's a bunch of these tiles left in the box that we didn't even use that are going to score in different ways as well. So there is a lot of variability in how the game is set up. And they actually even have like scenarios in the rule book that give you specific setups that are supposed to be challenging in different ways.
Yeah, they have solo play, but they have scenarios and challenges and all sorts of different things. Now, I would say those aren't going to like turn this game on its ear and like, oh my gosh, this blows the game wide open. But it is a nice touch.
Fun.
It's a nice touch that if you get maybe a little tired of what you're doing, although I don't see people getting tired of how variable this could be.
I mean, if this is a game that's like on your 10 by 10 and you're playing with your significant other every morning, and you can go through that list of scenarios and you can play through all the scenarios, and it adds that little bit of like, okay, we feel like we're playing a very different game every time, even though you are still playing the same game.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say about who I think it might appeal to, if you've ever played like a match 3 game on your phone, this very much, a lot of tile placement games feel that way. This one does very much so because you are literally making like sets of 3 into a hex, and that triggers something. And then you're able to take that layer and build things and trigger something else. So it has that cascading effect. So I think people like that. Now, we've already touched on this a little bit, but who do we think it's not for?
Yeah, I can tell you, and this is my biggest struggle, and I know that I don't even struggle with this as much as some people do. This is 100% a spatial puzzle. Every element to this game requires you to be thinking ahead as to how you're going to build not just the hex you're placing, but what is the next hex going to look like? What is the third hex out going to look like to make these different patterns? And I know that my brain struggles with that. A lot of what I do on my board is just like by complete random luck. And I actually ended up in a lot of situations where I had way earlier in the game put 2 tiles together in such a way that meant I could never build in that direction.
Right.
So it's like, oh, well, if I had been thinking through, or if I had a better ability to pattern this out in my head, I think you would do a lot better. So I think you have to know going into this that it is going to challenge that part of your brain.
It is, and it's going to be one of those things where if you're sitting at the table with people who are geniuses at that, and I am no genius, but when we played, I happened to, and I would say I'd chalk this mostly up to luck and not my intellect. I was getting more of these large animals at first. In fact, I think I had all 3 of these before you had 1. And Ryan was like, I'm not getting this. But then all of a sudden he got 2. And I want to point out one thing that he did that I didn't do. And this kind of speaks to the different things you can do in this game. And some of those things are going to sidetrack you from other things. He built this reef right here. And that's going to score him some points because at the end of the game, that reef scored him what? 1, 2, 4 animals.
It re-scores you the animals that are next to it. But I'll say because I know that I'm bad at spatial puzzling, like some of these shapes came randomly. And this one, this like seal or whatever, they're all double-sided. This one didn't even score me any because I didn't have any turtles, so I didn't get the multiplier anyway. But I just happened to make this shape. I knew that my spatial puzzling was bad, and I knew that I was not going to be able to figure out a way to get these bigger shapes. But I thought, I could at least put a bunch of green together. Like, I can do that part and hope that it scores. And you'll notice I just kind of started building next to it. If I was really good, I would have been able to, connect this all into one reef.
That would be a master stroke to have a reef and then have laid those such that you could actually put a lot of habitats around that and then large animals. That would be crazy.
But like I even said, like I know that I can still do spatial puzzles, even though it's not my strong suit. I know that there's people out there where it's completely their weak suit, or they don't like having to think about that. And you have to be good at solving a spatial puzzle for this game, or at least to optimize your points at least.
For sure. I will soften that blow though and remind everyone how fast the game is.
Sure.
So even if you find yourself struggling and frustrated a little bit, the game's going to be over quickly. And then I would suggest play it again. Like this game can be played really quickly. And I do think, I told Ryan before we even started playing, I think this is going to be a game I need to play more than once so that I'm like, okay, I think I've got my head wrapped around this now. Maybe I can score a little bit better. And in fact, in the back of the book, we scored what, in the 50? You scored 60.
60.
Yeah, Ryan beat me, by the way.
By 1 point.
60 to 59. And in the back of the book, a couple of the challenges are, the first challenge is score 70 or more points, or 80 or more, and then the last one is 100 or more. So I think we did all right for our first game.
I did okay. I really got lucky getting this last one here. I managed to place the tile that made this yellow, and I didn't even realize I was making this shape. And I didn't realize I was making this shape because my brain just doesn't, I can't look at this board and go, oh, if I do this and put this one here. I looked at it afterwards and I was like, oh, shoot, that's that shape. Okay.
Games are a combination of skill and luck, and both can be fun.
It's tough.
But that is Aqua. If you have any questions at all about this, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.
Yeah.